We are live. Oh,
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us on our first kickoff version of the Lunch and Learn series. This is a series that will be happening for the next 4 weeks, starting with this one, to really get down and support the Girl Ambassador Program. The reason we are doing this is given the current pandemic and the current tragedies that are happening in our nation, it seems that once again, Black girls are being neglected in their needs. And through that, we are noticing a decline in the support that we used to have in the Girl Ambassador Program. So we are trying to keep and up the ante for the support. And if you want a little tidbit, there's a donate button right there that you can press. It'll take you to the website and you can donate. But before we get started with any of that, I would like to introduce one of the amazing guests that we have today, actually two amazing guests that we have today. We'll be discussing their participation not only in the Girl Ambassador Program, but a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on today. First things first, we have Senator Jennifer McClellan. And second, we have Joy Coleman, who is here. She actually worked under the senator, which is amazing. And so because of that, we just have a couple of questions that we're going to ask. We're probably going to ask the senator questions. And of course, Joy, if you want to chime in on some of them, you can. And then we'll ask Joy a series of questions. Same thing for you, Senator. If you want to chime in, you can. But truly, it's an honor. And I thank both of you for being here today to help us kick off this series. So, for Senator Jennifer McClellan, it is true that illnesses do not discriminate based on race. However, statistics show that communities of color are being disproportionately affected not only by the pandemic, but by rising unemployment rates. How do you think specifically the Black girl is falling behind in this economic downturn?
First of all, it's great to be here, and thank you for the question. And I think both of those statistics are really a symptom of a larger historic inequity that centers Black women in particular at the bottom of the sort of socioeconomic pyramid, where we kind of have been since, we first came here 400 years ago. And what I have noticed in my years as a public policy maker is even when legal discrimination ended, it wasn't as if a magic wand was waved and got rid of the systemic inequity and centuries of impact that inequity had. So that has led African Americans and Black women in particular to be more susceptible to health disparities, whether it's asthma rates, hypertension, heart disease, all of which we have seen are complications that cause, if you get COVID, it to be more deadly. Access to healthcare, access to testing, and a lot of the low-wage jobs, many of which are now frontline workers, are jobs that have historically been held by women of color and Black women in particular. So I don't think we can fully understand where we are today if we don't have a real understanding of the past 400 years of American history and how it has impacted African Americans. And we need to not just recognize those systematic inequities, but understand both the healthcare recovery and the economic recovery are going to have to be ones that don't just preserve those inequities, but finally dismantle them.
That was very profound. I'm speechless. It was a very eloquent answer. Another one for you is, it seems that African American women are always being disproportionately represented in government, even though many policies affect our demographic and population. What do you think internships and opportunities given through Girls for a Change, or GFAC for some people, such as the one you had with Joy, are essential in connecting Black girls to politics?
So it's really all about access, and opening the door to access, and the same systematic inequities I just talked about in healthcare and the economy apply in government. I mean, if you think back, representative democracy began in Virginia 2 months before the first Africans, and a full year before the first women came. And it's a power structure that was built by, of, and for white landowning men. And over time, politics, you often hear, it's in the word, pol meaning people, and the people who have access tended to give access to people like them, or people that they know and people in their network. So the hardest part is just getting your foot in the door. And I think internships like the one that Joy had in my office, and internships like I had when I was in college. I wasn't as fortunate to have one in high school, but they get you in the door and they get you in a position to learn. The best learning environment is an immersive environment. And so when you are there, immersed in what you're trying to learn, and in the culture and the network and the language and the day-to-day of government, it opens doors that might not otherwise be open to you.
Thank you so much. Speaking of Joy, I'm going to ask her a question, then come back to you, Senator. Joy, you have been a part of Girls for a Change since you started high school, and have been a part of many of its programs, such as the Girl Action Team and the Speakers Bureau. As of last year, you were also a part of Girl Ambassadors. Before you even started your internship, you had to go through training. How do you believe this training benefited you in the long term for the workforce and for life in general?
Okay, yes. First of all, let me say, just like the senator, I'm very glad to be here and very honored that you guys chose me as a speaker. Thank you so much. So we had a lot of speakers come in during the training, either in person or virtually, that were able to educate the girls on all aspects of the professional life in the workplace, which is invaluable because for a lot of the girls, it was pretty much the first working experience that they would have. So it was really important to be able to get down the logistics of it. So one of my more memorable lessons was when someone came in to talk about workplace attire and workplace ethic. So like how to talk in the workplace, the nuances of speaking to a coworker or a superior, how to present yourself in the workplace, because in this society and in the workplace society, it's also a lot about how people view you as well. So you need to be able to know how to professionally present yourself. So that was really, really helpful. And then also, this was throughout the entire training process, we were learning how to use Microsoft Office and the adjunct programs that come with the offices. Wait, can you guys not see me?
See you.
Yeah, we can see.
You can see
You're
me.
good.
Okay. Okay.
We tell you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so we learned how to use the adjunct programs with Microsoft Office, like Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, because Excel, like we learned how to use it in school for like math stuff and science stuff, but you can do so much more with Excel, which they showed us. You can make schedules, you can do like stuff with the years on Excel, so that was super valuable. They taught us how to use a resume and how to make a resume. And also I used some of that for my college applications, which totally went beyond the professional aspect of it and totally helped me for the life aspect of it. And also moving on to the life aspect of what the training gave us, I think that the most valuable life lesson that the training gave the girls is the ability to be able to present your ideas and opinions in a professional way so they can be better understood by a multitude of people.
Oh, Oh, wow. Thank you so much. That was quite good information, quite a good plug to talk a little bit about the Girl Ambassador Program. Now, a question for you, Senator. I'm jumping back and forth to make sure we give even screen time. But women of color are more likely than any other demographic to have low-wage jobs. This is ultimately because of a lack of access, like you talked about, or an inability to take advantage of the access given. What tools do you think a Black girl needs to minimize this statistic?
So I think the number one asset is a good, high quality education. And that's not just school, and school is critical and school is important, but a well-rounded education that I would include in that internships, volunteering, sort of figuring out what it is you want to do and learning everything there is to know about what you need to get that job, and positioning yourself to get either an internship or starting as, as a volunteer, getting in the door. And then sponsorship, really. I think the important, going back to your first question, importance of internships and volunteering and networking is to connect to people who can see your value and get to know you and see your work ethic, and when opportunities come, you're on their mind. And so I think big picture, those would be my answers.
Okay, thank you. Do you think some of the stuff that Joy said would be something that you would qualify as something that can help a Black girl get their foot in the door? And how do you, did you have any experiences like that when you were growing up, like training for the workforce?
Yeah, I was very fortunate in that, I had a working mother. I was the youngest child, and so by the time I came along, my mom was already well established in her career, and so I kind of learned a little bit by example, but also through, and actually her and my dad taking me to work. They worked at Virginia State. My dad was a college professor. My mom was a counselor. And I started out, after school. Often I would hang out in their office, or if my dad was teaching, some nights I would go with him and just kind of see what they did. Yeah. And then as I got to school, the same kind of training, kind of on the job training, really. And I think sometimes people assume that volunteering for an organization isn't going to give you training. It's just going to be like somebody's going to give you work and that's it. But I knew very young that I wanted to be in government. And so I got not only internships, but I volunteered on campaigns because I wanted to learn what that was all about. I volunteered in organizations that would help teach me about the job that I wanted. And sort of I cannot emphasize enough, the best learning is an immersive learning. That's why the best way to learn a language is to go to another country and be immersed in that country and its culture. The best way to prepare for the job you want is to spend time there watching and learning about the people who work there and asking questions. And a lot of that is informal. Formal training is important, but I think the informal training you get from an immersive, just watching people at work and asking questions is very important.
Yeah, I hope girls learn from this lesson, because what I heard was you targeted what you wanted to be and you went for it, and you went for it full gusto with great precision and great determination. And I hope people who are watching can take an example from that and see that, once you target what you want, anything is possible. Doesn't matter the race, doesn't matter the gender. If you do that, I mean, there's obviously some barriers for women of color as opposed to, maybe a white male. But if you find it, they could be, like you and, eventually have politics, be in politics if that's what they wanted. So a question
Yeah.
for Joy. You had the rare opportunity to intern with Senator McClellan.
Yeah.
How does having access to such a powerful figure as one of your first job experiences make you feel, and why? No pressure.
Thank you. It was really an honor to have that be pretty much my first real job experience. It was such an honor to do it because every day I was able to interact with real people and real problems and really get to visualize the help that I was doing, because you know every job involves people in some way. That's why businesses are created. People have some sort of need. But in the office of Senator McClellan, it's a much more direct connection. I'd make phone calls with constituents. I'd help organize meetings. I sit in on meetings with both the senator and Abby, the chief of staff. I'd sit in, oh wait, I just said that. I'd help organize prisoner case files, which was really cool. And the staff were so helpful and understanding and kind because it was like my first real work experience. And I also got to intern with other college students that were doing it there. So I wasn't alone, and I was able to work in team settings. And it was so powerful to be able to go home some days and be like, someone out there, there's a change in someone's life that wasn't there at the beginning of the day because of me and the work that I did today. And I always had an idea that I like to help people. You know, I've been involved with Girls for a Change. We've gone to speak on multiple issues, but then working in the senator's office just really solidified that fact. Yes, this is what I want to do. I want to help people. It feels so good. So that was a real honor and a treat, and I loved working there.
Did this experience even influence how you are seeing life in the future? You know, like, did you have a certain career path before, and did maybe working with Senator McClellan change that career path or something like that?
Yes, before interning with the senator, I had a lot of ideas of what I wanted to do in college. Many. It was a multitude. It was a lot. But afterwards, I was so sure that it was like, yes, this is what I want to do, maybe on a larger scale or internationally, which is why I'm going into planning to pursue global relations in college. And it was just like so eye-opening. It's like, yes, this is what I want to do. This is like helping people with real work, like locally, on a state level, federally. It's just like, this is what I like to do. This is nice. This is, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Senator, is there anything you want to say? You influenced her whole entire career path.
I'm just, so Joy lives up to her name. I mean, she really was a joy to work with and to have in the office. And I'm glad that the internship, not only that Joy enjoyed it, but that it helped shape her career. I'll admit, and I'm glad this was not Joy's experience, but sometimes internships will also show you that something you think you want to do, like you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very glad that wasn't the case for Joy, but
Yeah.
it's a good way to help. And it sounds like, Joy, we did this for you, really help you find your inner passion. And I'm just, anytime you want to come back, come on back.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take you up on that. This is being recorded, so
Yes. I'm looking right at it. Look at this. You're making job connections on a Zoom call. Oh my gosh. But speaking of helping, Senator, I have been, how can I say this, bio-stalking you, researching everything I could about you, because I was interested after I first started doing research, of course, for this, but then just seeing the multitude of things that you've done, I was just interested in general. I was like, wow, she's doing a lot. I like it. It's stuff that I was passionate about. So speaking of stuff that I internet stalked you about, and the list of issues you advocate to change, one of them focuses on housing. How do you think the economic and social disparities that African American women face exacerbate the housing segregation found in Virginia?
It's all connected. it is all connected. And if you don't have, and it's a circle, it's like a vicious cycle, because if you don't have a home, you can't get anything. The first thing you've got to do on a job application is put your address. And you can't get an education if you don't have a home that you're connected to. But the neighborhood and where you live directly impacts, do you have access to transportation that is reliable? And if you don't, you're not going to be able to stay with a job. Do you have access to food consistently? And if not, you're not going to be healthy. And if you're not healthy, you can't work. And if you lose your job, most people are housing insecure, which means that, people have pay a high percentage of their income in rent or housing costs. And so you are one paycheck away from losing your house. And a lot of people, I think, we see that with this pandemic very quickly after people lost their jobs. The first thing they started worrying about is, how am I going to pay rent? And that's some of the first calls that we got in our office, was concerns about paying rent and mortgages. So part of what I have really focused on is trying to make sure that we have enough affordable housing so you don't have people who are spending 50, 60, 70% of their income on their house. And it's hard because like everything, wages have not kept up with the cost of housing. And so it's a real challenge that we are focused on trying to figure out how to give local governments, developers, tools that they need to expand access to affordable housing so that, we can strengthen our communities, and you don't have that sort of very tenuous link between housing security and security in every other aspect of your life.
That's something I noticed again when I was internet stalking you. You talked a lot about in different ways of strengthening community. Maybe I shouldn't keep saying stalking. Maybe I'm taking sorry, but I did. So a question for Joy, just to try to keep it back and forth. Do you feel that your peers and fellow Black girls who do not have access to a program such as this or an internship with Senator McClellan such as this are able to have the same type of experiences and benefits that you're able to have?
Unfortunately, I don't think that that's the case, which is part of the mission of Girls for a Change is, trying to change that. Because through Girls for a Change, I've had so many great experiences speaking to people and traveling to places that I just can't imagine myself being able to do without, Miss Patton seeing something in me or you recommending the organization to me.
You're welcome.
Because I feel like for our fellow Black girls and girls of color, it definitely stems from the perception that society has of us. If they're like, oh, they're not capable of this kind of work, so why would we even offer it to them? So those opportunities, like the people who have those opportunities don't even think about offering those to Black girls. And this is also tie into my work at Senator McClellan's office. When I was there, we were working on creating an internship program that would help more disenfranchised, quote unquote, youth to get internships at Senator's office, because kids from Maggie Walker, which is sort of a quote unquote gifted school, every year kids from that school would score internships with the Senator's office. And it was pretty much a given that kids there would get the internship, but kids from other Richmond public high schools weren't getting those same opportunities. It was sort of a preconceived notion that, like, they're not a gifted school. Like, why would they want it? Like, people there don't want it. But kids at every high school, no matter what high school or school you go to, there's people who want change and people who are willing to put in work for it. You just have to give them those opportunities, which is something we were working for there, to create internships and positions open for those kids only, which is another part of the work that I really love, because unfortunately, the work that I've done with Girls for a Change, like for a girl of color, it's seen as an exceptionality instead of a commonality with our like white counterparts, which is something that I'm totally invested in changing. And I'm so glad that Girls for a Change and the Senator's Office is fighting to change.
Yeah, that's something I noticed as well, because when you talked about disenfranchisement and, you know, the Maggie Walker sector, you mentioned that it was seen as a gifted school, but it's also a predominantly white school. And that also goes back to the circle, I guess, of in some ways, these biases come out and often affect Black girls and affect racial ties. And sometimes they don't even know it because they're just like, it's advanced, but it's also predominantly not people of color. And so that's pretty much some of the basic questions I had for you guys. Is there anything overall that you guys would like to say while I see if I have any more questions for you?
Yeah. So I think Joy really touched on there has to be intentionality on both sides. And I think, so from my perspective as a potential employer or someone in an area who has opportunities to give people, I have to be intentional about going to the not so obvious schools. So for example, the PAGE program that the Senate has, you know, very similar. There's certain schools where, you know, you always know they're going to have a PAGE, but we are intentional about going to Richmond Public Schools when we see applications from schools that never get a PAGE, looking at them first. And so part of it is on us to do the recruiting. And there are a lot of organizations who are creating programs specifically for the marginalized. So for example, when I was involved with the State Bar, the Young Lawyers Conference, and we wanted to focus on increasing diversity in the legal profession, we created a law camp for high school students to spend a summer learning about the law, living on a college campus. And in creating that application process, we intentionally said, look, we are targeting those students who may not be straight A students. They have the potential and they have the interest, but they don't necessarily know anybody who's a lawyer. The only lawyer they may ever have seen or experience with the legal system they've ever had might be, you know, a negative one or from TV. So let's look for those students, not the straight A kids who are children of lawyers. And so I think there are programs out there, there are organizations and people out there who are intentional, that part of my job and Angela's job through Girls for Change is connecting them, because it takes more effort to make those connections.
I heard you mention, you know, not being the child of a lawyer or having this straight A student mentality. And that actually brings me to an audience question that we got, which is there any recommendations for young girls, boys too, trying to break out and grow that do not have the best or strongest support from family at home? So I know you kind of touched on it with you saying that you know, started this camp. Is there anything else that you could recommend?
Yeah, I think, you know, finding organizations there are a ton of those type of programs, whether it's mentorship programs, you know, whether it's, you know, Boys and Girls Clubs, whether it's YWCA, and tying it to the profession that you think you want. So if you think you want to be a lawyer, go look for legal organizations to figure out, do they have a program? Do they have a mentorship program? Do they have a youth development program? And just reach out and ask, because they're there. It's just very hard to make those connections. But and you know, for more specifics, anybody who is watching, if there's like a specific interest or specific organization or type of organization you might be interested in, I'll put my email in the chat in a minute. But feel free to reach out and we'll try to help make those connections.
Oh, okay. And speaking of that question, I would also like to have Joy piggyback off that and maybe answer a bit.
Yes. Not to paraphrase what the senator said, but totally community organizations, they don't have to be, huge organizations. There can be community organizations that you could find at places of worship, connected with schools, with like you might have said YMCA centers or community centers that will help give you that support. Because like using Girls for a Change as an example, there was a real sense of community and support in the program, that even if you can't find the support in other areas of your life, getting involved with those programs will absolutely give you the support and the motivation that you need, and you'll know that those people are always in your corner. And community-based organizations are great because they totally have an invested interest in you because you're a part of that community. You just have to go out and find them. I would totally recommend that.
All right. Thank you guys so much. It has been such a pleasure to have both of you. Again, it is an honor. Both of you guys were so amazing in this chat. And I think everyone watching learned something. And I think it really shows, what the Girls for a Change program is about, what Girl Ambassadors is about, which is having connections like the one that the two of you guys have made. And, just seeing how Joy was inspired to, change her whole life career, seeing how you, Senator McClellan, have brought all this inspiration and all these, and all this information. I don't even know. There's so much that you've brought to the table that I think everyone has gotten a chance to learn from because, we just have, you brought your voice to Girls for a Change and now everyone gets a chance to see it. And I'm so glad because now I can internet stalk you anytime I want.
Yes.
And now that I have your contact information, I might email you. Who knows? But thank you so much again for us having thank you so much again for having us having you. Any of those work. And we're going to move on to the next session. So if you guys want to log off or if you guys want to listen in, just let me know. But yeah, so thank you. I think this was a great start to the Lunch and Learn series, especially interview wise. I had a great time with both of you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun. Woo!
Yay.
Bye.
All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Next up, we are going to be having our interview with Joel Edgerton. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And while I'm on this with just me by myself, I want to ask you guys if you could go ahead and click that domain, maybe add a little bit more, because as you noticed, the Girl Ambassador program truly, truly is something that helps girls grow. And if you've noticed from any of the information that Senator McClellan said, or any of the stuff that we had one of our Girl Ambassadors, Joy, say, it is really essential. And there is a gap, a huge gap that can only, sorry, I'm trying to adjust, but a huge gap that can only be filled with programs like Girls for a Change. And Girls for a Change is unique in the fact that it targets that one area, that intersectional problem that needs a unique solution, and it becomes that unique solution. So we are going to have our interview come up with Joel Edgerton, where we'll talk more about internships and the value of those, which is something that Girl Ambassadors does apply. For everyone still here, there's just a bit of technical difficulty. You know what happens. Just be patient. First, thank you for doing this. I want to say it right here and there so everyone can hear it. It's really quite an honor to have you here. But the first question is, why do you support Girls for a Change?
Well, there's a number of reasons. I think maybe the best way of describing is to tell the quick story of how I got involved and why I'm still involved.
Okay.
I actually kind of stalked Angela Patton. I saw her, I was on the internet one day. I was looking at TED Talks, and I came across Angela's TED Talk about Dance with Dad, about the daddy-daughter dance in the Virginia prison. And I was so moved by it. I started passing the video around to everybody that I knew. I think because I wanted to make them all cry.
Wow.
When I watched the video, and for anyone who hasn't seen the video, it's Angela describing how Dance with Dad started in Girls for Change through one of her action teams. And anyway, so I tracked Angela down, and for about 8 months we were corresponding with each other, and then I finally went down to visit her in Virginia. And as a filmmaker, I thought this was a great story, and I was thinking about the story first, about what a great story this is as a fictional film or a documentary. And I went and met Angela, and the second part of your answer is that the reason I'm involved with Girls for Change is because I think charities aren't so much about the organisation as they are about the people behind them. I was so impressed by her, and the TED Talk was just really one story and one program, and that there was like an iceberg. That was the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much more to Girls for Change. So I got a tour of the centre where you are right now. Angela and I kind of had dinner, got along very well, and we stayed in contact. And then she is a force, as you know. Angela Patton is a force for good and for change, and she kept bringing me in to ask me if I had thoughts on different programs she had. As I know now that she takes girls with all sorts of interests and she tries to give them experiences in those interests. So, you know, at the time living in New York, my girlfriend is involved in the fashion industry. Angela was asking if there's anything we could do to help there. Just recently, Barry Jenkins, who was directing me in a TV show, asked if he was very welcoming to the girls when Angela asked if they could do a set visit, the ones who are involved with filmmaking. So I stay involved with Girls for a Change because I think what Angela's doing is fantastic. It's never a charity or an organisation that I imagined I would get so involved in, but I just do because of Angela. And I went to one of the prison dances in DC last June 1. So we have a relationship now where I would call her a friend. I hope that she would call me a friend. So I think what she's doing and what the organisation are doing is fantastic, and I just help in small ways if I can be of benefit. That was a long answer, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, because speaking of help, one of the questions is, tell us about how you've been supporting Girls for a Change.
I've been supporting in a few different ways. I think I've joined Angela on a couple of her things, you know, her events. So I've sort of brought myself to those events. I don't know if that helped, but definitely a little bit tiny financial ways that I can. Angela and I had a couple of days setting up the prison for the DC Dance with Dad, and I had a really interesting time helping her dress the men and organise suits for the men. And the other way that I've helped is just through my connections to try and bring other people into Angela's sphere, because I know how hard it is sometimes to reach out to people that have the kind of profile that can help an organisation like Girls for Change. So I've met people over the years that I thought Angela would want to meet, and you know, we got Angela and Tiffany Haddish together, and Tiffany's been now a great supporter of Girls for Change. And so yeah, introductions, a little bit of whatever I can do, really. There's nothing formal. Angela calls me and says, "We need this, can you help?" And I say,
You're like,
I I should help, A, because she's nice, and B, because I don't know what it's like to say no to Angela.
Oh, yeah. I hope you never have to find out.
She really is a force, because you just don't want to say no to her. And I think that's partly because she's so strong-willed.
Yeah.
She delegates very well. And it's coming from a really good place. So why wouldn't you want to say yes?
Yeah. All right. So tell us about your experience, like maybe a specific experience that you've had with some of the girls here, or about our programs.
I've had some really interesting times, actually. I really did have a great time bonding with Angela and her niece and some of the other team from Girls for a Change in DC, because it was a long period of time to be there, a few days where we got to do a lot of different activities. That was kind of amazing. And then recently in Los Angeles, Angela had a big event there to sort of, give awards to various people. Ruth Carter and Tiffany, and I mean, that was exciting for me to get to meet Ruth and some of the other people involved. But listening to the girls talk about their experience in the program was great. And my girlfriend and I had dinner with Angela and the whole gang sort of after.
Yeah.
That was great. I mean, it's just a really good family atmosphere, meaning there are lots of members of Angela's family that swirl around the organisation, her son and her daughter and her niece, but the girls, I guess, with Angela feel like they're a family. I guess she very much is a mother figure.
Yeah. That is one of the great things about it.
But that was great. I just liked the time spent with people, and as I say, I think organisations are really about the people in them, and that's what I really appreciate, is that I feel like I've made some friends and friends that are doing good things. So I have little bits of time and energy that I can help her. Then great.
Yeah, Girls for a Change does have a great energy. So I remember in one of a previous interview that you've given that you talked a lot about internships. So what do you think the importance of an internship is?
Well, it's so valuable. I mean, if you're interested in doing a thing, whatever it is, a career or to follow some kind of pursuit, there are obvious ways that you can seek education. Whether you have access to that education or you don't is one thing. Where you live has a lot to do with whether you have access to information beyond the internet. And to have access to people who are doing the things that you want to do can be really inspiring, especially when they're people who are doing it at such a high level. I mean, I could only have dreamed of visiting a television or a film set when I was a kid, but I never would have had access to that where I grew up. I didn't know anybody that could take me onto a film set. So I felt really excited, when Barry Jenkins said, let's welcome Angela and the girls to come visit. I was watching that experience through their eyes, and in some way that's a work experience for people who are interested in any form of filmmaking. But I only dreamed when I went to university. I was lucky enough to go to a drama school, and your teachers are fantastic, but sometimes your teachers are not the people that are out there doing the professional work. So to have access, if you're interested in design, to a company that's actually making things and selling clothing is invaluable. It must be very inspiring. If you're interested in any particular career, to then have access to a professional person, it gives you the chance to dream that you could possibly be that person one day, I think is the point. And I think those experiences will stay with you forever. And that's one of the great things that I think Angela's doing. She's getting the girls, asking them what they're interested in, and then she's going out and seeking those experiences for them.
Yeah.
And I think that'll make such a difference. I know it would have made a huge difference to me when I was a kid.
Yeah, I know with us visiting the Warner Brothers set, I was immediately inspired and I felt so invigorated because, it's hard to find a lot of people who, kind of fall in my description or demographic on TV. So seeing, that this is where I could be and I got here before I was even, 20 years old was very inspiring. And I was glad to have Girls for a Change do that. Another question I have for you.
Yes.
All right, transition so quickly. But how has mentorship changed or, just been in the entertainment business given this whole pandemic situation?
Oh, that's interesting. I think there could be more mentorship when it comes to the film business or, television industry in general. I know that directors sometimes have a director's attachment. I'm mentoring a young writer at the moment in Australia who, there's a mentorship program through Screen Australia. And I think it'd be good if everybody sort of took at least one person under their wing, because I think you have to imagine the roles being reversed. Like I said before, I would have loved those experiences when I was younger. So the idea that you acknowledge that you, no matter what position you're in, if you're somewhere up the ladder, you have something to offer, whether it's telling someone how to get there, whether it's telling somebody how to behave once they are there, conduct and craft are two things immediately that you could share with a person. Right now, during the global pandemic, it's weird. I think in many ways, there's been no event that I remember in my life that's brought the entire world to think about the exact same thing. We're all handling it very differently. We're all being affected by it very differently. And so we're not all experiencing the same thing, but we're all being affected by the exact same thing, the exact same event. So I noticed in my sphere people that are writing, doing that a lot. It's a luxury you have if you're in development. There's a lot of stuff being developed. I think it's hard for people to connect, but I think that it's easier to connect. Thank goodness for the internet. I think more to your point that maybe it's a sign that anybody who's watching this or anybody who cares to think about it should maybe consider that now is a good time while they can't be operating 100% in their job. If they do have some spare time, that maybe they can be having these kind of conversations or sharing their information with somebody else, or find somebody to mentor via Zoom or Facebook or whatever.
Can you tell us a story about maybe you being mentored or being the mentorer, just so we can get another clarification story in about mentorship? The first thing that jumped into my head was when I was a younger actor, I did some Shakespeare. And I was doing Henry 4, 1 and 2, and the following year I followed it up by playing the same character but as the king, which was Henry. Mm-hmm. And I think it was because young actors don't appreciate or are as well schooled with their voice, and Shakespeare can often require a certain muscularity with dialect voice that the director of the company, a wonderful man named John Bell, he said, I'd like you to spend time with this actor who's going to play Falstaff, because he was a master at, I guess, in simple but iambic pentameter, but delivering Shakespeare. So I suspect it because he's like, I think you need to be a bit better at this than you get this older actor. And it reminded me of stories I'd heard that actors a long time ago used to join a theatre company and you join at the mailroom level, like you were just the spear carrier and the person that came on and said, the king has arrived, mm-hmm. And that would be your line. And then over the years, you would get larger roles. And so I felt like I was entering
into a theatre company at a mailroom level, and this actor John Gayden taught me about language and taught me about Shakespeare and how he writes and how the arguments are formed, and about the construction and the science of words, you know. And it was something that I would have learned at university. Maybe it was like, but I got to spend time with somebody who had done all the things that I wanted to do in the future, and it was invaluable. I can't tell you I was any better at it afterwards, but I still remember the things that I was told and that he taught me.
Wow, that's amazing. And all the stuff that you've said today has been truly profound and really interesting to listen to. I was going to ask, do you have any closing remarks that you want to say about Girls for a Change and maybe our program in general?
Listen, if anybody's interested in, I just think that Girls for a Change is a really fantastic organisation. If anybody is watching this, you should do a little deeper dive on the Instagram page, I think, and definitely watch Angela's TED Talk, because I think that it really kind of gives you the essence of a person that you know is good and that you want to maybe support. But I think in general the idea of looking after young people, showing them that they can carve their own way in the world in a bigger, stronger, and more indelible fashion than they may think in their own sphere. I think inspiring kids to do great things is a great thing, and that's what Angela does. So, whether it's Virginia or whether it's in your own country or your own state, I think there definitely should be more. I thought about this the other day. I was like, Angela should be franchising Girls for a Change. So
Oh my gosh.
Boys for a Change, she should open them up in every state. I know she won't do it because she has the mind that people need to take their own initiative. So yes. I think she's designed the wagon, and she doesn't want to go and build the wagon for everybody else. She just wants to my wagon. Now you go build your own. And, same with the Dance with Dad, and I think it's a really good stance. She cares about her girls, her community, and hopefully that'll inspire other people to care in a similar fashion within other organisations. So I think the more of it, the better.
All right, thank you so much. This has been a great interview, and I'm so glad we got a chance to have you today.
Hey, good to see you again.
Good to see you again as well. It was. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed the interview. I know I did. Just a couple closing remarks. I would like to say this was a great opportunity. I'm glad that the first Lunch and Learn series was such a success. If you have any questions, of course, you can comment. I'll see them, I'll answer them, all that stuff. But truly, the whole point of this is the fact that the Girl Ambassador Program is surely such an amazing opportunity for our girls. And it's something that we should save and savor in as many ways as possible. So if you can help with that in any way, maybe you can support a girl, maybe you can support a small business, either of those would help. Go ahead and click the button down below. It'll take you to our website and you can fundraise. You can maybe look into businesses and support one of those for the whole process of, having one of our girls in their business. Next week, we'll meet around the same time, 12 o'clock, same host, whole different category of people. So I hope to see you guys then. Bye.